Story 1. I never imagined I'd be posting here. I've been a long-time reader in this community and rarely encounter individuals with such an entitled attitude. This situation occurred about a week ago and involved my housemate, a truly lovely girl, and I was there to witness it all unfold. I'll refer to my considerate housemate as Ada, who is 21 years old, and the other housemate, the one causing all the problems, as Bizarro, who is 20 years old. Bizarro is the newest addition to our household, having moved in just 2 months ago. We had all gone out of our way to be friendly and welcoming, but apparently she mistook our kindness for weakness. It seemed like she believed we were just passive doormats who wouldn't stand up to any rude behavior. The incident began when Bizarro needed a phone charger. She knocked on Ada's door and politely asked if she could borrow hers. Ada was heading out at the time, so she handed her charger over, telling Bizarro she could use it while she was away. About 4 hours later, Ada returned. I had just opened the bathroom door and was about to step out when I noticed Ada knocking gently on Bizarro's door, asking if she could get her charger back. Not wanting to miss what was going on, I stayed in the doorway at an angle where I could see and hear the interaction without being noticed by Bizarro. Bizarro opened her door, looked directly at Ada, and with a completely straight face, said, "No." I had already had a few problems with Bizarro in the past, and I could tell many stories about her strange and inconsiderate behavior. But this response left me genuinely surprised. The level of audacity was beyond anything I had seen before. Ada, understandably confused, reminded her, "It's my charger. You've had it the whole time I was gone. I need it now, my phone's dead." Still, Bizarro refused and claimed she hadn't been given enough time to use it. She even tried to shift the blame onto the charger itself, saying, "It's not my fault that it's so slow." At this point, Ada was both upset and baffled. She told Bizarro she wanted her charger back immediately. I swear I heard 3 more firm no's from Bizarro before I finally stepped out of the bathroom and walked toward Ada. As soon as Bizarro heard footsteps approaching, she slammed her door shut and shouted, "I'm getting the charger, okay?" A moment later, she opened the door again, tossed the charger toward Ada, and slammed the door shut once more. Ada and I just stared at each other, completely stunned. We exchanged the most bewildered looks. Our minds were absolutely blown by what had just happened. We were, as they say, utterly speechless. What made things even more ridiculous was what happened later. Bizarro, unaware that I had overheard the entire interaction, tried to twist the story. That night in the kitchen, she cornered me in an attempt to gain sympathy and painted Ada as the rude one, casting herself as the helpless victim. Of course, I didn't fall for any of it. I let her talk, but I wasn't buying into her version of the story at all. I've decided not to dive into that side tangent, though, because this is already a long story. Unfortunately, Bizarro is still living with us, so the drama is far from over. She's a truly peculiar and entitled person, with the most extreme case of victim mentality I've ever encountered. On the bright side, at least we now know never to offer her help again. Story 2. My brother, sister, and Bill feel as if Mom should give them her house and property and move into an old folks' home, or buy them a house. My mom is almost 80. She has all of her faculties about her. She is well educated and very spry. It's mostly my sister and brother causing all the trouble. A few years ago, my stepdad passed. He was a great guy and good to my mom. My older brother and my younger sister are convinced that Mom has secret money left to her when stepdad died. At first, they thought she had cash hidden in the house, so they'd visit her, and one would keep her busy while the other would snoop. Then they convinced themselves that she had a secret bank account somewhere. No, she doesn't. I do most of her banking and set up her accounts for autopay. She owns her house free and clear. After Dad died, I orchestrated a GoFundMe to get her house paid off. We were successful. They do not know that I did this. They were kept out of the loop for fear they'd pressure her into giving them some of the money. So they have no idea how she paid her house off, only that she had paid it off. They really ramped up the pressure after she paid off the house. Now they are convinced more than ever that she has a secret stash of money. Then we told them about the GoFundMe for her house, hoping they would back off of Mom. But they lost it. They wanted an accounting of the money, and they wanted anything that was in that account turned over to them, threatening to take me to court for elder financial abuse. Now she only has to pay the monthly bills. I set up her auto pay, so I know exactly how much money she has. Enough to live but not to have any fun. So I pay her water and cell phone bills for her. I transfer the money to her account every month. They have each told her she needs to give them money for a down payment on a house since she refuses to give up her home of 35 years. If she won't give them any money, then give up an acre to them each. How are they entitled to her money? She receives less than $4,000 a month to live on. I cannot convince them that she doesn't have a secret bank account. The thing that they do not understand is that he is not our bio father, and he didn't raise us. They married when we were all out of the house. No matter how many times I point this out, they say that it doesn't matter, since they called him Dad. It's been a few years, but they still bring it up often. Mom called me last night. She was tired and had worked hard today in her high tunnel. Both of them had been calling for the last few weeks, upping the pressure. The last time they brought it up, they talked about splitting her house and property between the two of them, also mentioning her secret bank account. There are 5 siblings altogether. But since the other 3 houses and careers are doing better than these 2, they think they are entitled to her home and property after she passes. What they do not know is that she left her house and 5 acres to an animal rescue activist group that she is very active in. I know because I am the executor of the will. She has asked me not to tell them. How do I get them to back off of her without telling them there's not a snowball's chance in hell that they are getting anything? She does not want them to know about her will, for fear they will harass the animal rescue activist group. Story 3. Seeing a few stories on here made me think about when my father passed away and everything that happened before and after. I'm trying to hide some of the identifiable details in case someone I know comes across this, but just in case a specific person does, I just want you to know I haven't forgotten, and I will not forgive. I'm what you'd call the accident child. My father had children from a previous marriage and didn't want any more, and my mother was never supposed to get pregnant due to having tumors removed from her ovaries. But as the 1980s slowly bled into the 1990s, I came along. Thankfully, my parents never treated me with resentment like many children born under similar circumstances are treated. But my sister sure did. She was over a decade older than me and never liked me. She put on a decent facade, but everyone knew she didn't care for me. The only times I can remember her being truly kind to me were when our grandfather passed away and the one time she drove me to the airport. She almost hated my mother. She had it in her mind that my mother was the reason her parents divorced, even though our father didn't meet my mom until years after that marriage ended. In fact, my father's ex-wife and my mom became and still are really good friends, so no one ever understood where my sister got that idea from. In the early 2010s, my father got seriously ill. The kind of illness where everything goes downhill at once. He ended up in a coma for a month and wasn't expected to make it. Somehow, he pulled through, but he became permanently disabled and was forced into retirement. After being in the hospital and then in rehab for a few months, he came home. Since the government tends to stop offering real support when you're no longer able to generate income and instead become reliant on assistance, I moved back in with my parents to help out. For 2 years, I worked full-time, attended school full-time, and assisted my dad. My mom and I would take turns caring for him during the week, and every weekend I would watch him for 8 to 10 hours while Mom went to work. All of their money had gone to his medical bills, and if it hadn't been for the fact that their house was paid off, they would have lost it. So Mom and I became the bill payers while Dad rested in his chair, sedated by medication, watching reruns of television shows he had seen countless times before. I'll spare some of the more graphic details, but most of my time with my dad involved helping him go to the bathroom and cleaning him up, assisting him in the shower, and cleaning up after accidents, whether from missing the toilet or vomiting on himself due to the cocktail of medications he was prescribed. When I was in my late 20s, most people thought I was in my 40s because of all the stress. I'm nearly 40 now, and I actually look younger and healthier than I did 10 years ago. My sister, however, would visit maybe 2 or 3 times a year and only to clip his toenails, which he liked because she did them a specific way. She never once helped with the unpleasant caregiving tasks. She never saw the more difficult sides of his condition. Despite being fully aware of our situation, she still found ways to hint at or ask for money, something she had already done regularly before he got sick. Then one day, he passed away. It happened quickly. One Friday, he started acting strangely, so we took him to the hospital where we discovered he had suffered a minor heart attack. But due to his already poor health, his organs began shutting down. That following Monday morning, I said goodbye to my dad as I watched him take his last breaths. I'll give my sister some credit, she was somewhat kind during this time. But that didn't last. We held a small memorial service at the house. My brothers had flown in earlier to help us prepare. Dad didn't have a will, but we all knew what he would have wanted to give us, as he had told us before. It wasn't much since Mom was still alive, but we divided his possessions among ourselves peacefully, setting aside specific things for our sister. When she arrived, however, she immediately began walking through the house, claiming dibs on everything and becoming upset when something she wanted had already been spoken for. For example, his firearm collection was to be split between one of my brothers and me, since we had both served in the military and were the only ones with any interest in firearms. But she was upset she didn't get one. She even tried to claim items that belonged to my mother, which we quickly shut down. The day of the memorial itself went smoothly until night fell. I had been drinking for over a day at that point, dealing with the overwhelming stress of the past 2 years and the fact that I had been laid off from my job the same day my dad passed away. A not-so-kind farewell from my former employer. At one point during the evening, we planned to take a shot in my father's memory. My sister wanted to be included, and we told her we were pouring them now. Then she suddenly disappeared. We waited a few minutes, but had no idea where she went. So, myself and the 10 or more other family members gathered took the shots in his memory. Out of nowhere, she returned and started throwing a tantrum that we didn't come find her. Apparently, she had gone outside to smoke. Myself and another family member had gone out to look for her, but couldn't find her anywhere. Regardless, she was furious and decided to leave and drive back home. A couple of months later, my mother found out she needed all of the children's signatures to gain full possession of my father's truck, since both of their names were on the title and he didn't have a will. The process required our signatures to confirm we wouldn't contest her ownership. My brothers and I signed it without hesitation, but my sister, of course, made a big fuss. I found out later it was because she believed the truck should have gone to her instead of my mother. Eventually, I moved in with one of my brothers across the country to start over. A few months later, my mom decided to follow. She had no remaining family back home except for her stepdaughter, who she didn't feel would care whether she lived or passed away. So, she sold the house. Now, remember how my dad didn't have a will? That didn't actually matter for the house because it wasn't his. It had belonged to my mother's parents, and she inherited it when they died. My father was never on the deed. As far as the state was concerned, the house belonged solely to my mother, and eventually to me if anything happened to her. But that didn't stop my sister from making a huge fuss about it. Now, I'm a little unclear on the details because I wasn't there, but apparently my sister tried to pursue legal action to force my mother, her stepmother, into selling her the house for well below market value. Her biological mother apparently stepped in and put a stop to that idea. She told her that if anyone deserved the house after my mother, it was me. My sister scoffed at the idea that my grandparents' home would be passed on to me rather than to her. So my mother sold the house and moved to the same area where I had relocated. A couple of months later, my mom became very upset. It was close to the 1-year anniversary of my father's passing, and my sister had written her a harsh letter. In it, she scolded my mother for not giving not selling, but giving her the house. She insisted it had been her father's home and claimed my mother had no right to sell it to anyone else. She said it should have been given to her for free. Somehow, despite the fact that the house came from my maternal grandparents and had nothing to do with her side of the family, she fully believed it was hers by right. That letter was the final straw for me. That was the day I decided to cut ties with my sister for good. It's been nearly 10 years since that moment, and I haven't spoken to her once. Neither have my brothers, except for one brief period when one of them was diagnosed with cancer and she tried to reach out to him. In my opinion, she was trying to weasel her way into receiving something if he passed away. Thankfully, he's been in remission for years now, and as far as I know, she no longer contacts him either. In the time since then, I've gotten married and had 2 beautiful daughters. I never heard a single word from my sister during any of it, not even a congratulatory message. My mom lives with us now. She's in her 70s, but looks like she's in her 50s. She gets to see her granddaughters every single day. She has a lot of friends and an active life. Honestly, I haven't seen her this happy in years. I'm sure my sister would hate to know that. As for me, I have no intention of ever speaking to her again. I told my wife that the only time she'll ever meet my sister is at a funeral, and even then, she probably won't say a word to me. My sister always saw me as the accident who stole her father from her. Despite having been married twice, she still doesn't seem to understand how families and custody work after a divorce. But if I happen to pass away before she does, she can rest easy knowing I'll still be leaving her something. It'll be a nice decorative resin display featuring 2 middle fingers and 1 cheek of my backside just for her. Story 4. I joined this subreddit today after my first ever encounter with an entitled mother and her equally entitled child. Here are the characters important to the story. Entitled kid, the spoiled child in the story. Entitled mother, his overbearing and dishonest mother. My mother, self-explanatory. My father, also self-explanatory. Entitled kid's father, a surprisingly decent guy despite his family. Me, let's just say I was trying to be the voice of reason in a chaotic situation. So, my father is a longtime friend of the entitled kid's father. My father doesn't particularly like the entitled kid or his mother. Neither does my mother. But when we visit the entitled kid's father, who is honestly a very kind man, they put up with them. The entitled kid's mother is physically strong. Apparently, she goes to the gym frequently. My father is also very strong since he works in the military. Another important detail: the entitled kid's family has security cameras in every room of their house after a robbery that happened 4 years ago. These details become important later. I personally saw how the entitled kid and his mother could be annoying sometimes, especially the kid, when playing a certain video game I'll mention later, but they acted fairly normal toward me until today. I've been playing a game called Dead by Daylight on my portable gaming console, the Steam Deck. Yesterday, I purchased all the cosmetic skins for the character Springtrap. One thing I didn't mention earlier, the entitled kid is also a big fan of Dead by Daylight. So, like every time I visit, I brought my Steam Deck to the entitled kid's father's house. We usually play this game together, me on my console, him on his PlayStation 5. He gets mildly frustrated sometimes, which is annoying, but I deal with it. This time, while our parents went into the kitchen to talk, the entitled kid and I decided to go to his room and play Dead by Daylight together. After about an hour and a half, he said he wanted to show me something specifically, that he had purchased one of the Springtrap skins. I said it looked pretty cool and proceeded to show him that I had purchased all of them. At first, he seemed angry and made a snarky comment. I didn't understand why, and I didn't like it at all. Here's how the conversation went, roughly remembered, but fairly accurate. Right after he showed me the one skin he bought. Me? Yeah, I like the Glitchtrap skin, it's really cool. But look, I turned my Steam Deck around to show him I bought every single cosmetic for Springtrap. Entitled kid, wait, really? Didn't know you were such a pigeon. Me. What? Where did that come from? Entitled kid. You know how much I've been asking my parents to buy me the others. Me. No, and honestly, I don't really care. It's not that important. You should already be happy they bought you one. Entitled kid. Ugh. But the others look so cool. I really want them. Me. And what am I supposed to do about that? Entitled kid. There's something you can do. Then he went on a long rant about how cross-progression works. For those who don't know, cross-progression is a feature that allows a player to keep the same progression on different platforms. He went on and on about all the cool things that could happen if I activated it between my Steam Deck and his PlayStation 5. I gave him a firm no, because only one of us could play at a time if we shared an account, and I wanted to progress in the game on my own. I also didn't want him unlocking stuff for me or skipping content I wanted to experience myself. That's when the entitled kid threw a tantrum. He really wanted those skins. He ran out of his room and called for his mother. He twisted the entire story and shouted, "Mom, he can share with me the stuff I wanted to buy on my PlayStation, but he won't because he's being selfish." Then he explained cross-progression to his mother, leaving out every reason I gave for not wanting to share and framed it like I was just being greedy. I sat on his bed, extremely frustrated, watching him manipulate his mother into thinking I was the unreasonable one. Suddenly, after hearing his twisted version of events, the entitled mother stormed over and snatched my Steam Deck out of my hands. I didn't resist because I didn't want it to get broken. It cost over €500. She then asked her son how to set up cross-progression. I was stunned by her audacity. The entitled kid tried to go to the developer's website on my console to activate cross-progression, but he didn't know how to navigate the Steam Deck's interface, and he quickly became frustrated. When I began yelling for my parents to come help, the entitled mother launched herself at me and clamped her hand over my mouth. I tried to sneakily reach for my phone to call my parents, but she noticed, snatched it out of my hand, and threw it out of the doorway, shattering it completely. I really wish I could post a photo of the aftermath because I still have it, but sadly I can't upload pictures here. Thankfully, the entitled kid's father noticed the commotion and came in with my parents to see what was happening. My father, without hesitation, pulled the entitled mother off me. She fell to the floor, and he quickly grabbed me and moved me away from her. He was clearly upset and asked her in a stern voice what was going on. The entitled mother immediately began making things up, claiming he wouldn't let my son play on his console, and then he tried to attack him after he took it away, same with the phone. I firmly responded that it wasn't true. But the entitled kid, who had now started crying and had set my console on the floor, backed up his mother's false story. He walked over to her, pretending he was hurt and holding his head dramatically. I told them that was absolutely not true and explained everything that had happened, from the moment we started playing the game until now. My parents believed me without question. The entitled kid's father, who didn't seem surprised at all, also appeared to believe my version of events. Apparently, this wasn't the first time the entitled kid had acted out of jealousy or the entitled mother had bent the truth to protect him. The entitled mother and her son kept trying to make their version of the story sound more believable. That's when my mother asked about the security cameras I had mentioned earlier. She said, "Aren't there cameras in the house? Shouldn't we check those?" The moment she said that, both the entitled kid and his mother froze. They completely stopped talking. The entitled kid's father agreed and said he would check the footage. Suddenly, the entitled mother tried to stop him. She insisted, "The cameras are turned off. There's no point in checking." But that was a lie. The entitled kid's father checked and confirmed the cameras were active. He pulled up the footage from the room, and it showed everything that happened, from the entitled mother snatching my console to covering my mouth, and even her throwing my phone out the doorway. While the footage didn't confirm every detail of my side of the story, it was enough. It showed without a doubt that the entitled mother and her son were not being honest. They were caught red-handed. At that point, the entitled kid's father became visibly angry at both his wife and child. He turned to my father and said, "We'll talk later, but for now, I think it's best if you all leave and keep your son away from mine." We gathered our things. My Steam Deck was fine, thankfully. My mother, while still clearly upset, promised me she would take my shattered phone to an Apple store and get it repaired. We left shortly after that. On the way home, my mother told me that she would try to press charges against the entitled mother for assaulting a minor and damaging private property. Since this all just happened today, I don't yet know what's going to come of it, but I'll try to update this post if there are any new developments. Story 5. A bit of background. I work for a parcel delivery company, and my job is to fix parcels that have problems with the labels. If the address is wrong, give parcels to customers at our hub's pickup location, finding phone numbers and email to people who we're going to deliver parcels to, etc. However, I'm not exactly customer service. The only calls I take are from people that have problems with labels. Nothing to do with late pickups, drivers having not delivered correctly, that sort of thing. Now, my coworkers should know that, but sometimes it seems they either don't know what kind of work I do or they ignore it. I have a few examples. 1. I was working one day when I got a call from a customer service rep from a different hub. We have about 8 in my country, and I picked up the phone, thinking it's something to do with a label. What I got was not this customer service representative, but an angry man complaining about how his parcels had not been picked up yet. I told him that I'm sorry, but that is not my department. He didn't care and demanded that I got the driver to come and pick up his parcels. After telling him again that it's not my department, and I cannot even see who is picking up parcels in his area, he asked me to transfer him to someone who could help. Now, our phone system is run 100% via computer. Problem is, I was not instructed in how to use it, how to transfer calls and such. My company is not very good when it comes to teaching people how the new tech works, even if they use it every day. I told him I could not do that because I hardly knew who he was going to talk to and asked him to please call our main number again, which he eventually did. I wrote the customer service representative an email and told her that I didn't have anything to do with parcel pickups, and I thought that was it. But no, she continued to forward these calls to me almost every day for the next week. It wasn't until I got my supervisor involved that it stopped. 2. I have a customer service representative at the hub that I work at, who, let's just say, is not the brightest spark in the fire. One day she called me and told me that there was a guy on the phone that I needed to talk to. Thinking, again, it was about a label problem, I said sure, and she forwarded him to me. What I got was a guy whose parcel had not been delivered for a few days. According to our driver, he was not home, and he couldn't get into the building to place the parcel, and he was furious, demanding an explanation on why his parcel had not been delivered, demanding an express delivery, which I can't authorize, and basically calling the company useless. I explained that I don't know why his parcel had not been delivered, and that I wasn't customer service, to which he replied, "Then why am I talking to you then?" I was just thinking. Ask my coworker who forwarded you to me. I told him I would look into it as best as I could and would get the parcel out for delivery on the next coming weekday. This was a Friday, so it would be delivered on Monday. He got quiet and breathed heavily. I knew he was about to explode. He did eventually calm down, and after profusely apologizing for the inconvenience, I called the customer service representative and asked her why she had forwarded this call to me. She replied, "Well, I figured you could explain this to him better. Lady, you are customer service, that's your job." I talked to my supervisor, and he talked to her afterwards, so I thought that was the end of it. Wrong, wrong, wrong. A little while later, I'm on the phone with another customer, when the same customer service representative shoots me an email with a phone number followed by her writing, "Call, thanks." I wrote back, why, but didn't get an answer. Knowing that I often get calls from people about label problems and that they're sometimes in a hurry, I make the mistake and call the number. What I got was an older lady who was extremely angry about not having received a parcel a few days earlier and was also furious about not having been notified that we had been at the address. I told her that I had tried to find a phone number for her, and she said her number was on the internet, and she called me a liar. She wasn't the receiver of the parcel, it was her husband, and I couldn't find a number for him to be exact. Then it was another 10 minutes of me, despite it not being my job, trying to explain how our policies work and how I could not authorize express delivery, and everything I said just made her even more angry and made her chew me out even more. I told her I would make some calls and see what I could do, and she finally hung up. I went to my supervisor and asked him for a number for the transport manager. "Supervisor, why do you need his number?" Me, customer service, asked me to call someone who, as it appears, wanted a parcel delivered with express delivery due to an apparent mistake from the driver. Supervisor: "Wait, that's not your job. You're not supposed to call people about stuff like that. That's customer service's job." "I know, but they asked me to call and didn't explain what it was about, so I thought it had something to do with a label problem." "Who asked you to call that number?" "I told my supervisor who was in customer service that asked me to call." Supervisor: "Again?" "Yep." "I'll go talk to her." "And the reason she wanted me to call this lady?" "I didn't feel like I was getting through to this lady. I felt you were much better at getting through to her." I hate my job sometimes. Story 6. So, there is a big park in my town that has grassy areas, a playground, several ball fields, a river, a trail, and forested areas. A group of us dog owners have been coming to the park every day for years. All of our dogs are neutered or spayed and fully vaccinated. Most of them are small breeds. We always clean up after our dogs, carry leashes to restrain them when they are not playing a game of fetch or doing their zoomies in the grassy area, and all of our pups have excellent recall. The city law states that a dog must be under the control of its owner at all times. So, the regular group meets at the same time each evening, and we practice recall, other obedience exercises, and socialization tasks, in addition to leashed walks and play sessions. Sometimes, there are 5 or 6 dogs at a time. One woman, who is not part of our group by her own choice, owns a home about half a block from the park, on the same side of the street as the park entrance. There is no homeowners association in this neighborhood, and the park is maintained jointly by the city and county. This woman owns a large dog and several cats. She allows her dog to take himself to the park without supervision. The dog is friendly but poorly trained and unruly. He will jump on people with untrimmed nails, leaving scratches. He often steals toys or balls that are in play with other dogs and takes them back to his home. He drinks all the water we've brought in for our dogs, and there is never anyone to clean up after him, despite the fact that his waist is significantly larger than our dogs. Since the owner is nowhere to be found, we usually take turns cleaning up after her dog just to avoid getting it on our shoes or having our dogs step in it. On rare occasions, the owner will actually walk her dog through the park on a leash. Sometimes, her dog will bolt after a squirrel or a deer while she is holding onto the leash, and she ends up being dragged. Somehow, she blames us when that happens. When she steps in dog waste, she blames us. Occasionally, one of her cats will follow her and her dog on their walk. If our dogs notice the cat or begin to move toward it before we recall them, she blames us. A few days ago, we were all sitting in the shade of a large tree in the middle of a grassy field located at the center of the park. It was a hot day, and our dogs were tired, all calmly sitting at our feet. The woman was on a trail about 300 feet away, behind us and off to the left. Her cat was following behind her as she walked her dog. None of us, neither people nor dogs, noticed her or her animals until she suddenly began yelling at us. She specifically called out my name and demanded that I leash my dog. Since my dog was already sitting calmly at my feet, I immediately clipped on her leash. The woman continued to shout as she walked away. We kept all of the dogs on their leashes for about 10 minutes, trying to figure out what all the yelling was about. After that, we resumed play. A few minutes later, she reappeared from behind us. As she came into view, One of my friend's dogs briefly started to chase the cat before being immediately recalled. No contact was made, and the dog returned right away. The next day, the woman stopped my friends during their morning walk and hysterically accused my dog of attacking her cat and grabbing it by the throat. That never happened. She also informed the group that she didn't like where we sat in the park. According to her, she found it frustrating to have to walk around us or even see us. She stated that we shouldn't sit near the entrance, near the trash cans, in the middle of the park away from everyone, or in the picnic area, or even near the trails, because she might want to be in any of those places on the rare occasion she walks her dog on a leash. Essentially, she doesn't want us in the park at all. Since she lives near it, she believes that gives her more rights to the space than the rest of us. We have continued to gather in the same spot at the park every day since.